Most cars get hauled to the junkyard somewhere around 150,000 miles, and the owners walk away figuring they just got unlucky. They didn't. After 22 years under the hood, I can tell you the cars that roll past 300,000 miles aren't lucky, and they aren't some special model. They're owned by people who quietly do 7 things almost nobody else does. Most drivers never learn a single one of them, and plenty of mechanics would rather you didn't either, because a car that dies young is good for business. I'm going to hand you all 7. And the biggest one, sitting at number 1, costs nothing, needs no tools and no parts, and it's the exact opposite of what you'd guess, because most people are slowly killing their engine while they're certain they're being gentle with it. Do these 7 things, and 300,000 miles stops being luck and starts being a plan. Number 7, change the oil. Like your engine, depends on it because it does. Every long-lived engine I've ever opened shares one boring habit. The oil got changed on time, every time, for its entire life. Oil is the only thing keeping thousands of metal parts from grinding one another into powder, and as it ages, it loses the additives that protect those parts and turns acidic and gritty. Run it too long, and you're lubricating your engine with sandpaper. Here's what the long-interval crowd won't dwell on. Those stretched 10 and 15,000 mile schedules are written to look cheap and easy while the car is under warranty, not to carry it to 300,000. The manufacturer only needs it alive long enough to sell you the next one. Be honest with yourself. Do you even know the last time your oil was changed, or which grade is supposed to go in? If you're guessing, that's the first crack in the plan. Change the oil and the filter on schedule or a touch early with the exact grade your engine calls for, and treat a $59 service as the cheapest insurance you will ever buy. Good synthetic oil can stretch the interval somewhat, but even synthetic ages by time as well as mileage, so a car that mostly sits still needs its oil changed by the calendar. Skip it, and nothing else on this list will save you. Number 6, change every other fluid. The lifetime lie tells you to ignore. Oil gets all the attention, but your engine isn't the only thing running on a fluid that wears out. Your transmission, your cooling system, your brakes, they all depend on fluids that break down. And the single most dangerous phrase in this whole business is lifetime fluid. Lifetime almost always means the life of the warranty, not the life of the car. A mail carrier in Kansas City believed that line about his Silverado's lifetime transmission fluid and never touched it. The fluid went from clean red to burnt brown, lost its grip on the gears, and by 190,000 miles, the transmission was slipping and cooked. A $189 fluid service every 60,000 miles would have spared him a $3,260 transmission. Drop a comment below. Have you ever once changed your transmission fluid? Be honest, most people never have. Service that transmission fluid, flush your coolant on schedule, and change your brake fluid every few years, because it literally pulls water out of the air over time. Don't forget the smaller ones either, the power steering fluid, and on trucks and all-wheel drive cars, the differential and transfer case fluid, all of which wear out on a schedule measured in years as much as in miles. The fluids nobody thinks about are the ones that quietly end cars. Number 5, fix the small thing. Today, not the big thing later. The cars that reach high miles belong to people who deal with little problems while they're still little. A weeping seal, a small coolant drip, a belt starting to crack, a faint new noise. These are cheap and simple on the day they appear, and they almost never stay that way. After 22 years, I can tell you exactly how this goes, because I watch it on repeat. The $27 belt somebody ignored snaps on the highway, takes out the water pump, and overheats the engine, turning itself into a $1,940 afternoon. The small leak left alone runs a whole system dry. Nothing on a car gets cheaper by waiting. That warning light people unplug or ignore for months is just the car trying to flag a problem while it's still a cheap one to fix. Catch problems while they're small. When a new noise, a fresh leak, or a warning light shows up, deal with it that week, not next season. A car kept ahead of its problems almost never has to face the big ones. That discipline keeps the cheap stuff cheap, but the next habit fights the single force that destroys more engines than ordinary wear ever will. Number 4. Treat heat like the engine killer it is. If running low on oil is the #1 way to kill an engine, letting it overheat is a close second. Your cooling system, the coolant, the water pump, the thermostat, the radiator, and hoses exist to hold your engine inside a narrow temperature band. Let it climb out of that band and aluminum heads warp, head gaskets blow, and in the worst cases, the block itself cracks. The American Automobile Association regularly points to overheating and cooling system trouble as one of the most common reasons drivers end up stranded on the side of the road, especially in summer heat. And most of those failures trace back to coolant that was never changed because old coolant turns acidic and quietly eats the water pump and radiator from the inside while still looking perfectly fine in the tank. Flush your coolant on schedule, somewhere around $117, and replace a tired thermostat or a swollen hose before it strands you. If that temperature gauge ever climbs into the red, shut the engine off then and there, because a warped head from driving 1 mile too far is a $2,180 mistake. Heat attacks from the inside. The next habit fights an enemy that comes at your car from the outside, and it's the one almost no mechanic ever bothers to mention. Number 3. Fight the rust before it eats a perfectly good car. You can do everything right under the hood and still lose the car to something most mechanics never bring up because it isn't a part they get to sell you: rust. In salt country, corrosion goes straight for the brake lines, the fuel lines, the frame, and the floor, and a car with a flawless engine is still scrap once its structure rots out from under it. Picture two identical Camrys. One spends its life in dry Arizona, the other lives in Michigan, driving over salted roads all winter and parked wet in a garage every night. At 12 years old, the Arizona car's underside is clean enough to eat off, while the Michigan car has flaking brake lines and a frame eaten thin, and replacing those corroded lines alone runs $1,420 on a car the rust has already half condemned. Same model, same mileage, two completely different fates. The fix is almost free. Anywhere they salt the roads, rinse the underside of your car often through the winter, treat it with a rust-proofing spray, and touch up paint chips before they bloom into holes. Keep the body alive, and the mechanicals you worked so hard to protect finally get the chance to reach big numbers. But every habit so far is something you do to the car. Number 1 is something you do with the car. It costs you absolutely nothing, and it's the one most people get completely backwards. Quick reminder before we get to the big 2. If this is changing how you think about keeping your car alive, take 1 second and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and it's what keeps these straight talk breakdowns coming your way. Number 2, be gentle in the first few minutes every single time. The hardest moments in your engine's entire life happen in the first couple of minutes after a cold start. When the engine has sat overnight, most of the oil has drained down into the pan, the internal parts are cold and sitting at clearances they were never meant to run at, and for the first few seconds after you turn the key, the top of the engine is running on barely a film. That is exactly when most of your engine's wear gets done, before the oil has climbed everywhere it needs to be, and before the metal has warmed to its proper fit. In freezing weather, it's worse still, because cold oil is thicker and slower to reach the parts that need it most. So how you drive in those first minutes matters more than almost anything else you'll do behind the wheel. Floor a stone-cold engine, wind it up to high revs before it's warm, and you're forcing the parts to take a beating at the precise moment they're least protected. Do that twice a day for years, and you're filing away engine life a sliver at a time. Ask yourself honestly, what do you actually do in the first 2 minutes after you start the car? If the answer is start it and immediately charge up the highway ramp at full throttle, that's a habit worth breaking today. The move is simple. Give it 20 or 30 seconds to get the oil moving, then drive, but drive gently, keeping the revs low and easing into the throttle until the temperature needle has climbed to normal. Treat the cold transmission and the cold tires the same way, with a light touch until everything is up to temperature. Let the whole car warm under a gentle load, and it rewards you with years. Beat on it cold, and it remembers every single time. That habit sets up the biggest secret of them all, because being gentle with a cold engine only pays off if you then let it warm all the way up, which is exactly what almost nobody does. And it's why number 1 is the single habit that separates the cars that die young from the ones that never seem to die at all. Number 1, stop killing your car with short trips and drive it all the way warm. Here it is, the secret almost nobody believes until they've seen the inside of these engines. The one that flips everything you assume about saving a car right on its head. The drivers who quietly take their cars past 300,000 miles are not the ones babying them with short, careful little errands. They're the ones who actually drive them all the way up to full operating temperature on a regular basis. And the people whose engines die young are very often the ones convinced that short, gentle, low-mileage driving is the kindest thing they can do. Here's why it works the exact opposite of how it feels. When an engine only ever runs for a few minutes at a time, it never gets hot enough to take care of itself. Water vapor, a completely normal byproduct of burning fuel, condenses inside a cold engine and mixes straight into the oil, where it turns to sludge and acid instead of boiling harmlessly away. Raw fuel that washes past the rings during cold running never burns off either, so it thins the oil and strips away its ability to protect. A car that only ever takes 5-minute hops spends its whole life trapped in that high-wear cold zone, slowly choking on its own moisture and fuel. The damage doesn't stop at the oil either. All that trapped moisture rusts the exhaust from the inside out. The battery never gets a long enough run to fully recharge, so it dies years early. And the catalytic converter never reaches the temperature it needs to do its job, so it clogs sooner too. Short trip driving quietly attacks the whole car at once. A retiree outside Tampa drove his Corolla exactly 3 minutes each way, to church and the grocery store and back for years on end. Low miles, always gentle, never once abused. He was genuinely stunned when the engine sludged up and gave out before 140,000 miles, leaving him staring at a $4,380 engine replacement on a car he had barely driven. His neighbor, meanwhile, who commuted 40 highway minutes each way in the same kind of car, rolled clean past 312,000 without ever cracking the engine open. Same model, opposite habits, opposite endings. The fix cost you nothing, and it's honestly the most pleasant item on this entire list. Get the car fully warm on a regular basis, which takes real driving, 15 to 20 minutes at road speed, not a long idle in the driveway. And here's the detail most people miss. The coolant gauge reaching the middle does not mean the oil is fully hot, because the oil climbs to temperature several minutes behind the coolant, which is the whole reason a quick warm-up at a stoplight never counts. If your daily life is nothing but short hops, take the car out once a week for a solid 20 or 30 minutes at highway speed and let it cook off all the moisture and fuel it's been hoarding. Stack your errands into one longer loop instead of 5 separate cold starts. And if short trips truly are all you can manage, then change that oil more often by the calendar, not just the odometer, to make up for everything that never burned off. An engine driven all the way warm on the regular stays clean inside, and a clean engine is the one that simply refuses to die. That's all 7, and not one of them is expensive or complicated. Religiously change the oil, service the fluids. The lifetime lie says to skip, fix small problems while they're still small, respect heat, fight the rust, go easy in the cold, and then drive the thing all the way warm. Together, they're the whole difference between a car you replace and a car that outlives its loan 3 times over. If you want to know the 5 noises a car makes right before something expensive breaks, click the video on the left and I'll see you there. Hit subscribe on your way out because there's a lot more they never told you, and I'm telling all of it.